Last week, Senator Edward Kennedy died from complications of a brain tumor that was diagnosed last year. I have been a frequent critic of Massachusetts' senior senator, and I certainly don't need to remind my regular readers of that fact. In this column, however, it is my intention to look at Ted Kennedy's life through the lens of America rather than the lens of a conservative. Senator Kennedy was the last of 9 children born to Joseph Patrick Kennedy and Rose Elizabeth Fitzgerald. He was the last born and the last of the boys to pass. Jean Kennedy Smith, who served as 25th U.S. Ambassador to Ireland until 1998, is the last living child of Joseph Kennedy. Ted's generation of Kennedys became perhaps the most influential family in American history. It all began with Ted's grandfather, Patrick Joseph Kennedy. He was a Massachusetts legislator and state senator. Among his children was Senator Kennedy's father, Joseph, who held the office of 44th Ambassador to the United Kingdom. It was Joseph's children that would forever change the landscape of American politics. The most famous of Joseph's sons was undoubtedly John Fitzgerald, who of course became America's 36th president in 1960. As with so much in the Kennedy lore, tragedy seems to follow this family, as President Kennedy was assassinated in November of 1963. His stunning bride Jacqueline remained in the spotlight until her death in the mid-1990s. Robert Kennedy became a U.S. Senator and was also murdered in 1968. Edward Moore Kennedy was a U.S. Senator from 1962 until his recent death. He is the 3rd longest-serving senator in U.S. history and leaves behind an indelible legacy of legislation, tragedy, controversy, and prestige. Kennedy's recent legislative efforts included boosting the federal minimum wage, the No Child Left Behind Act, signed into law by President George Bush, the Americans with Disabilities Act, COBRA, and the Medicare prescription program, also signed into law by George Bush. Kennedy's legacy will always carry the blemish of the Chappaquiddick incident in 1969. In 1973, during Nixon's Watergate scandal, Kennedy asked this question on the Senate floor: "Do we operate under a system of equal justice under law, or is there one system for the average citizen and another for the high and mighty?" Ironically, Kennedy's own involvement in the Chappaquiddick incident pretty much establishes the answer as yes. He will also be known as perhaps the most bipartisan liberal ever to hold office in the U.S. Senate. Make no mistake, Kennedy was no moderate. He was, after all, known as the Liberal Lion. Yet he has co-sponsored or endorsed almost every major bipartisan bill in the Senate. Kennedy will also be remembered for his soaring rhetoric and brilliant oratory skills. Even well into his 70s, Ted put Obama to shame behind the podium. The kings of America's Camelot are dead. The princes are not worthy of the kingdom. Ted's passing will mark the end of the Kennedy era. Camelot's walls will crumble, and America's titanic political family will fade into history. One generation of Kennedys that rose upon high in America and changed the world forever shall leave for posterity, for better or worse, their American legacy.